So our next speaker is the wonderful Sarah Best. Now, I have the privilege of working with Sarah in BSI People Skills, and she's also an educator for the Brainwave Trust, and she is a parenting and life coach, and she is the parent of three teen daughters. So it's great to have you here today, Sarah.
Thanks, Cathy. Kia ora. Kia ora, everyone.
Fantastic. So today we're going to be talking about the real powerful brain and life. And before we start that, I've got a couple of questions for you, Sarah. And the first one is, what do you think are the current challenges in the education system?
I believe we're still trying to educate our young people for a world that actually doesn't exist anymore. I don't believe that the skills that are being taught in the standard school systems are ones that are really helping young people to be the best versions of themselves that they can be, not necessarily lighting them up, getting them passionate about what they're good at, what they want to be doing out in the world, how they want to make a difference. And maybe not enough scope for creativity and really pushing the boundaries. I feel like we're still trying to push something that is an old-fashioned, outdated model.
Thank you for that. So many other speakers have said exactly the same thing. Yeah. So Sarah, what do you wish you'd learned at school?
Oh, yes. I mean, all the academic stuff is great, but we also need interpersonal skills, how to get along with each other, how to work together, how to work in a community, and also life skills to help us out in the world. There's so many life skills that could be supporting our young people to make that leap out into the adult world. And also really deep understanding of how we work neurologically in our brain and physiologically throughout our bodies, and how to get the most out of ourselves. I think there's lots of possibility there for what we could be learning in schools.
And that's why I've got you here to share today, is this understanding of our brains and how we can use that to get better results in every single area of our lives, eh?
Yes.
So that's a really good start. So how do we learn? How do we build our brains?
Right. Yeah. So we've got about 86 billion brain cells throughout our lives, more or less throughout that amount throughout the whole of our lives from birth until we die. And these connect up with other brain cells, up to 10,000 other brain cells are connecting up. And those connections allow us to make sense of the world and to interact with the world and ourselves and each other. Now, when we first create these connections, that's a good start. But there's a process by which we actually strengthen and make more efficient those connections so that we can do things faster. And this process is called myelination. So a substance called myelin is pumped out using special cells called glial cells that come over to the parts of the brain that are active at the time. And this myelin is pumped out, and it's kind of like the rubber coating on cables. It protects the connection and it makes it stronger, more efficient. And this happens more and more when we repeat activities, when things are happening around us over and over again, or within us, we're practicing them over and over. Practice makes perfect. This is exactly what it is in the brain. It's this process of myelination and really strengthening those connections. So the more we repeat things over and over again, the stronger that they get. Practice makes perfect. So we need to be careful what we practice, because anything that we're practicing lots and lots, we get really, really good at. And it's important to realize that it's not just things that we are doing that we are myelinating in our brains, that we are getting perfect at. It's things that are happening around us. So when we're watching and listening to things going on around us, they are also being myelinated and hardwired in our brain. So we need to know, what is it that's going on a lot around us? Those are the connections that are starting to grow stronger for us and are more likely to be held throughout the rest of our lives.
So that really makes us think, doesn't it? What is it that is this particular thing useful for me, or is it not useful for me? And that's one of those beautiful things.
Yeah, and this is how we all end up with very, very unique brain setups, because this process is created by a combination of the genetics that we're born with and also the experiences that we have. And everyone does have different experiences in their lives. So we all create a unique brain, a unique way of seeing the world.
thinking about brain development in young adults, so teenagers and so on, as they're going through secondary school, there's a huge amount happening in our brains, isn't there?
Absolutely.
Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of talk about the first 3 years and the early years of life laying the foundations for how we're going to think, feel, and behave. That's all very true. And there's another wave of activity that's happening in our brains. And this is during adolescence, from around about the age of 10 to around 25. There's a huge amount of activity happening in our brains. And our young people are really building on those foundations from the early years and growing huge numbers more of connections, and also doing lots and lots of myelination, particularly in the thinking parts of our brain, the cognitive, rational, logical parts of the brain. And this is a really amazing opportunity for young people to shape who they're going to be out in the world. And as long as they're supported really strongly with adults who are, helping them to be the best version of themselves that they can be, then there's huge potential can be created during that time. So with those brain cells I was telling you about, there's these connections around the outside, hair-like fibers around the outside called dendrites, and these are receivers. And during adolescence, these dendrites grow many, many more than we have in early childhood and then in adulthood. And this is so that so many more connections can be made. There's so much potential, opportunity for creativity, looking at things differently, and really making the best version of ourselves that we can. So while this is a great opportunity and there's lots of possibility, it's also a time of great vulnerability. So much change is going on in our brain during this time, and we need to be supported to be creating the experiences around ourselves and building the sort of connections that are really going to serve us during the rest of our lives. And also the impacts of trauma that may have occurred when a young person was a child, the effects of some of those may start to show during this adolescent time. And this is important for us to recognise and to support them in working through, because this can be a really amazing opportunity for them to work through some of that trauma and actually not have it burden them throughout the rest of their lives so much. So great possibility, great creativity, also vulnerability. They need lots of support.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Sarah. So you talk lots about having a powerful brain, right? We have this incredible possibility there. So how can I build a powerful brain?
Great question. When we recognize that actually we are creating the brain that we're going to have throughout the rest of our lives in every moment, we can make choices based on that. So recognizing what's happening within our minds, our mindset, the little voice that's in there telling us what's going on and what they're seeing. And if anyone isn't able to hear that voice, it's the voice that's saying, "What voice? I can't hear a voice." That's the one that we're talking about. So noticing what that voice is saying, recognizing that we always have choice throughout our lives. The only thing you have to do in the world is die. The rest is optional. There are consequences, of course, to that. And we start to build up an understanding of those consequences as we go through our lives. And recognizing that we can choose how we react to situations, which path we'll take. We can look at the various options and lay a plan for what we're going to do. Doesn't always work out. Yes, that's mistakes. We make mistakes, all of us human beings, and that's part of the learning process as well. If we can harness that understanding that we have choice, we can be the cause in our lives, and we can work with the experiences in as positive ways as possible, hang out with people who are going to support us, then that can help us grow a really powerful brain. And another thing that we can do is understand how we behave when we're in a stressed state and find ways to calm the brain when we're in that stressed state so that we can actually have access to all parts of our brain. We often find it difficult to think when we're a bit stressed. That's the first thing we say, I can't think straight. So when we're in that state, we're not having full access to all parts of our brain. And what we need to do is recognize that early and find ways to soothe that brain, calm ourselves down so that we can have access to that full amount of potential. It's really hard to learn when we're like that, and we want to be able to learn throughout our lives. So many, many skills that we can incorporate into our world, into our lives, to help build a powerful brain.
I really like in that how you talked about the importance of the people that you have around you, because that's something that I've heard many, many times, that the friend group that you're with, the people that you hang out the most with, will have the biggest influence, if you like, on the direction that your life can take. So being able to choose our friend groups, being able to choose the people that we're learning from. We don't have to listen from everybody around us, do we? And it can make a huge difference in our lives.
Yes, absolutely. Being really thoughtful and aware about who are the people that we are learning from, who are we leaning on, who are we choosing what we're going to do based on their ideas, or, we need to be careful and mindful about that. And us adults, we can be there for these young people as part of that group, maybe not as the friend group, maybe sometimes. We are really, really important to supporting young people. So young people aren't just working with their parents as the adults in their lives, but by the time we get to adolescence, we're working with our coaches, school teachers, our parents of our friends, and lots of other people in our whānau and our community. And there's lots of research now showing the huge importance of that web of support for our young people, for our rangatahi, the web of support helping to grow them into the best versions of themselves that they can. And ways that we can do that is looking at our young people with that eye to, wow, there's so much possibility here, and there's so much vulnerability here. And if we're finding that behaviours are not working so well with that young person, we can think, rather than what's wrong with this person, why can't they be more ... fill in the blanks, we can say what's happened for this young person and what can I do to support them, because this is a time where we can really help make a difference for our young people. We can be strong role models, giving them possibilities that are going to help them out throughout their lives, and be really responsive in a reciprocal relationship, give and take, supporting each other, learning from each other. These are ways that we can really, really help our young people navigate this time where there's lots and lots going on. We can really lift them and support them to have high expectations for themselves. And also we need to have the high level of support to match. So even though our young people seem to want to be off with their mates more than the adults around, the adult relationships are really, really important still.
Yeah, and it's just about being there, isn't it? Being there and showing that acceptance, showing that lack of judgment that is so important.
Yeah, definitely. It's not about being in their face. It's not about tracking their every move. It's about saying, hey, I'm here for you. You can come to me for anything. And then actually walking the talk. When they do come to you, we're not judging. We're not saying, oh, that's so terrible. We're saying, all right, got it. That sounds really difficult. How can I help you? So finding ways to be in a really positive, supportive relationship without interfering. And that can be a challenge sometimes.
It sure can be, because we so do want to fix, don't we? In so many ways, adults want to help and to support, but this is their journey, isn't it? This is their journey, and they are different people than us. Every single person around us, as you said before, has our own unique potential and our own unique skills and gifts that we're bringing to the world. And so it's about walking with and alongside each other, isn't it? Rather than telling people what they need to do. It's helping them bring out the best in themselves.
Yeah, that's right. And recognizing that just because something works for us or we think it's the right way, it doesn't mean it's right for other people. And especially our young people who, remember, they've got those dendritic proliferation happening, lots of myelination happening, lots of brain development and opportunity. They've got ways of looking at things differently to the adults around them. So giving them the benefit of the doubt and saying, wow, okay, I hadn't thought of that. I don't know if I'd try that, but like, go for it. Let's try it. Let's give it a go, and be really open to that possibility that they may well actually know themselves and the world in a different and equally good way that we do.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. So our brains are so powerful, and we can live these powerful lives. So have you got any tips on how we can grow a powerful brain in order to live a powerful life in whatever way a powerful life looks like to this particular individual?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. There's no right way to live a powerful life. It is whatever is right for that person. And over the last 20 or so years, I've been building up a bit of a model that helps to guide any conscious decision making, and helping to really experience life to the full. And I call this model REAL. And we've got a handout that you can look at to understand this more. And it stands for responsibility, energy, awareness, and love. Now, how it works is that, first of all, we look at responsibility. What can I be responsible for? What can I change here to make this situation better for me? What can I be aware of? What can I be responsible for in terms of my emotions, my responses and reactions, and what have you? Now, if we want someone else or a situation to change, the only thing that we can actually change is ourselves. So when we recognize that, we can stop waiting for other people to do the change, and we can actually choose that for ourselves. So this is a message for everyone who's wanting to make shifts, and if they're not happy with things going on in their lives. And I use this a lot. So being really responsible for the outcomes of what I'm creating in the world, including any side effects. And a very powerful and simple phrase that I use a lot: when you make a mess, you clean it up. So if we are creating any messes out in the world, go and clean them up. So that's one of the parts of this model. And then, in order to be really responsible, we need to have some good energy behind us, because it can feel a bit exhausting, especially if, we actually would just rather everyone else deal with it. We don't want to take responsibility. We need to actually have a lot of energy. So how do I build energy? How do I create that energy for myself? Is that a matter of learning how to breathe, that deep belly breathing, that and mindfulness that a lot of practitioners are teaching? Is it exercise? Is it the type of food we're eating? Is it the amount of sleep? Is it the people we're socializing with and spending time with? Because that can have a huge impact on our energy levels. So asking that question of ourselves. And then another really powerful question is, how can I build my awareness of what's going on around me and within me? How can I really get what the big picture is of what I'm talking about, and be open to other possibilities? And this is where our young people can come in. They may have so many other ideas that we just haven't even thought of, us adults. And to grow our awareness, again, we might utilize mindfulness techniques. We might utilize conversations with people with a really open-minded, non-judgment filled ear, really open to what it is that we're taking in, and just chew it around. All right, so there's possibility there, rather than, no, that's not what I believe, that's not what I know, and being very closed there. So this is an awareness of our emotional state and the emotions of others, being socially aware and physically aware, really understanding our body. Also, the intellectually aware, actually understanding the facts and intellectual understanding of the world. And spiritual awareness as well plays a huge part. This is a multifaceted awareness we're talking about here. And then the last question in this model is love. Basically, if we are coming from a place of love, if we have an intention of supporting others and supporting ourselves and respecting all life, then there's a good chance that we can actually make the differences and make the positive decisions that we're needing to make. So asking ourselves questions about how can I bring more love into this, rather than grinding ourselves down to the bone trying to do things, we can find a more loving way to work on the goals that we have and work out in the world. And rather than judging other people and assuming they're wrong and they're out to get me and everything's bad, we can put a different lens on things. So this is one way that I have found really, really helpful. And I call it the real model. And it's a way to really look at what considerations do I need to have for making decisions, making powerful decisions. Rather than expecting the world to just work out the way I want, I can actually start making some shifts and changes myself. And these questions can help with that. Now, remember I was saying with myelination, anything that we're doing a lot of, we get really good at. If we're asking ourselves these questions regularly, we're massaging those parts of our brain and making those connections, making those connections really strong with myelination, we can actually be building a very, very powerful brain and coming at life from a powerful perspective rather than that of a pawn or a victim. So I'm very passionate about teaching young people and adults, all of all ages, to live a really powerful life. And this is one of the ways to do that.
That's really useful, particularly this year, isn't it? When so many people are struggling and wondering, what they can do and what the options are that are there, and how do we look after ourselves? And people saying things like, oh, this is such a waste of time, etc. We have the control, we have the ability to make decisions within all of those things here, and you've given us a really powerful tool to be able to do that. So thank you for that. It doesn't make it easy though, does it? This stuff is hard. It's hard to remember every day. Boy, we have to show up and be real. We have to be responsible. I know there's a lot of people that have said, stop the world, I want to get off it, and things like that. And this is taking the time to be able to choose each day, actually, what can I do? What do I want to do? So how can I make those changes in mindset and so on to make this real and to make these powerful steps in our lives?
So just first of all, as you said, that acknowledgement that it's really hard. It's really hard to really take responsibility, to make shifts, to be really clear of what we're doing, to get rid of old voices, old connections that may have been myelinated when we were young, saying, no, you can't do it, and how dare you try and change things. This is the way it's always been. So it does take a lot. We need to have a strong intention for what we're trying to achieve. And we also need to be very kind with ourselves. So this is where love comes in again. We need to be kind with ourselves along the journey. We're not going to do it overnight. So here's an example where I smile at someone and they look away. They don't smile at me. Now, for me, this is a terrible thing. And I start thinking, they don't like me. Or I might think, oh, they're a mean person. Okay, so I've made an assumption there. I've made a judgment about them looking away. And that happens very, very quickly because I've done it a lot. And I've built up a mountain of evidence as to why this is true. So what we can do is use the real model, looking at what can I be responsible for here, and helping my energy be strong, being aware that actually my understanding of what's going on for them is actually only one possibility. It is an assumption, it's not the truth. And then love can come in that I can maybe assume another option going on for them. Maybe they didn't see me, maybe they're thinking of something else. There's other opportunities or possibilities there. So I'm going through all that, and that takes a lot of energy the first time. And it might be that I look back to yesterday and I say, oh yes, I assumed that person didn't like me yesterday. And instead of saying, oh, well, it doesn't work, I didn't change anything, let's just give it away, what I can say is, okay, well, I noticed it. I'll try and notice it earlier next time. And then the next time I look at someone, smile at them, and they turn away, I notice myself going straight into that same pattern. And after I've done that, I look back and go, oh yes, I did that thing again. I made that assumption, I made that judgment. And then the next time I can notice while it's actually happening and my little voice is saying, you're doing it again, but I'm still doing it. And I could give up at that point too and say, well, it doesn't work. Or I can recognize I've actually improved. I've actually noticed it earlier and earlier. And the more we practice, the earlier and earlier I'll start to capture that, until just as I'm about to think that the person is not, liking me or is mean, I can go, oh, hang on, could be something else. And then after a while, when that person is not looking back at me and smiling as I would wish, I start to go straight to the new possibility. I've myelinated a new pathway, a new alternative, which is, oh, they didn't see me, I'll wave. Or I'll go over and say hello to them. Or they don't look very happy, I'm just going to give them some space. So there's other possibilities there. And when we put all that together and practice it, after 6 months or a year, yes, it can take a long time, we look back and say, wow, I'm doing that thing that I wanted to do a year ago.
And that's being able to see that progress, isn't it? And I love how within that, we're not beating ourselves up. It's really important not to beat ourselves up in that. It's that self-judgment as well. And you're talking about here being aware of the thought patterns that are going on in our heads. But we can use this in every aspect of our life, can't we? In terms of, I'm thinking of what we're saying to people. For example, a student is late for class, right? And instead of being able to go, why are you late? Recognizing that actually this person's got a hell of a lot of stuff going on in their lives, and that it hasn't actually helped to say, why are you late?
Yeah.
Trying out, oh, welcome, you've had a tough morning. Yeah. And I wonder what the difference would be for that.
Absolutely. So really, that's a great example of looking at how can I support this young person, rather than I'm going to judge them because they don't fit into my mold of what they should be doing. So letting go of that judgment of ourselves and also of other people, and looking to what can I do about this? And that's a huge part of that responsibility part of that real model. And being aware that our belief of what's the truth isn't necessarily the whole truth. It may be a part, but it's only a guess. Mm-hmm. Everyone has their own perspectives on that, and lots of possibilities are there. So if we can really look at people with a lens of wonder what's going on for you and how can I help you? And these are the questions that are being used in trauma-informed practice at the moment, and it's called having a resilience lens rather than a trauma lens on the child or the young person, and thinking, okay, what's gone on? How can I help you? And with the teacher in the morning, with their main focus being about love and care and support for that young person, they can say, oh, welcome, I'm so glad you made it. Maybe later on, they could ask a bit more about what's happening for them. Maybe, it depends on the relationship. But in that first moment, what's important? Important is to welcome that young person into the class and help them to settle in, because they're likely to already be in a slightly stressed state from being late for whatever that reason was. So when someone is stressed and then we come at them with a stressful question or pressure or stress ourselves, then that just sends people more into stress. And we all know that. We've experienced that before, I'm sure.
And I can hear within this a journey of values as well, because this is questioning many people's values. The way that they were brought up, for example, was around you had to be in a particular place, you had to do a particular thing. And those are the skills that are no longer working in so many ways, is in the current environment, where we are having to encourage new ways of being and doing and using those powerful brains that we have. And so remembering about the relationships and nurturing the relationships and thinking about how is what we're saying affecting this relationship is is amazing. Yeah.
That's huge, Cathy. There's a huge cultural shift starting to happen. We're turning a massive ship. It takes a long, long time to change the direction of a massive ship. And that's what's slowly happening. And all of the ideas and experiences that are being shared during the summit are part of helping that ship to turn. And the more people we communicate with about these potentially new ways of being that are being offered, the more they can become the norm, the more they become just what you do. So one of the things that we're taught when we're young is we're taught to blame other people for our emotions. So and so made me angry, they made me sad. And what actually is the case is that we're choosing to go down that path and give away responsibility to the other person. So we get to be the victim, we get to be the one hard done by, and there's no power in that. And so this is one of the shifts towards owning our own emotions, owning our reactions to things. And if we can have a large number of people beginning to really own and be responsible for their own emotions, be the cause in their own lives, then we've got a far more powerful society working together positively to really reach our potential.
Instead of having a society that is able to show up and just be told what to do, we're talking much more about enabling agency, to use that terminology, to enable agency in every single person, to enable that powerful person to come out and to emerge and to make a difference in the world, aren't we?
Yes, enabling agency. And that's not so that we can go off and just run roughshod over other people and live our own life. It's actually when we've got true agency and true power in our lives, we work together far more positively with other people, because we haven't got our walls up of, they're gonna make me angry, they're gonna hurt me, they're going to do these things which will ruin everything for me. We can be far more open to relationships with other people, which is how human beings are supposed to work together. We're a social species. We're interdependent species.
What a great place to finish there, Sarah. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge today, that knowledge around how our brains work and how we can be our most powerful selves, no matter what age we are, the importance of relationships and our ability to using that real model to be able to make a real difference in the world. So thank you for sharing that today.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.